Hello and welcome to Have I Got News For You? I'm Alexander Armstrong. It's week 5 of lockdown. It's beginning to get a bit boring. It's like watching grass grow. Not even allowed to do that without the police moving us on. And if 99-year-old war hero Captain Tom Moore is watching, what are you doing? Get back in the garden. Fund our health service. Matt Hancock's counting on you. Are you bearing up, Paul? How's it going?
Yes, I have spent the last week disguised as a book on Ian Hislop's bookshelf behind him. I've disguised myself as a first edition of Well-Endowed Philosophers by Professor Hugh Cockerell.
I knew that book looked odd.
Ian?
Well, I've got rather annoyed with all the good weather, and I've decided to ring the police, and I've reported the sun. The sun appears to be out the whole time. A lot longer than an hour. It's never in. It's incredibly annoying. So that's what I've been doing.
Disappointing news for you. I'm afraid you haven't won the award for Best Background Bookshelves. That honour has gone to historian Simon Sharma.
I think that's cheating because it looks like he's read them all.
The ironic thing is one of those books is Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. Maybe he's in one of those secret rooms that you open the door by pulling out a book and he's just forgotten which one it is. Joining in tonight is Henning Wehn, a German comedian, which is quite a rarity. Be honest, wouldn't you rather be in Germany now, Henning? I know I would.
Nah, far too organised. I like it much better here. Proper circus, I'm loving every bit about it. Queen's Speech, Vera Lynn, it's absolutely splendid.
You really are becoming naturalised, aren't you, Henning?
And on Paul's team tonight is broadcaster Emma Barnett. Emma, you won an award for your Radio 5 show at a packed ceremony in March, rubbing shoulders and shaking hands with all the broadcasting greats. Bet you regret that now.
Yes, that was a very different experience, but I'm really relieved we managed to get it in just before lockdown.
This week, Thomas the dog from Michigan went viral. What did he do? Someone know?
You got rabies. Is that what you meant by the question? You got viral?
He stole a set of false teeth, leading to this.
It's Richard Branson.
I'm wary of the word, and he stole a set of false teeth, as if that dog has been responsible for putting in those teeth as opposed to a bored owner, but we'll go with it.
Right, let's get on with the show, and we start with the biggest stories of the week. Ian and Henning take a look at this.
That's Matt Hancock literally in hot water, trying to wash his hands of it. That's an emergency flight from Turkey, possibly bringing equipment to there. They're just testing.
Yeah, there is the dog from earlier.
This is the growing criticism of the government's handling of the coronavirus crisis. It looks like the Prime Minister Boris Johnson's still convalescing, unable to attend important meetings. So no change there then, Ian.
No, I mean, that was the shock news at the weekend, that he'd missed 5 of these important Cobra meetings and had been too concerned with, Brexit and reshuffling the cabinet and his impending marriage. I mean, he did have a lot on in February, and so there wasn't really time to organise the country in the face of this pandemic. So, yeah, that hasn't gone so well.
No, I think no one can complain because, he didn't get voted in because of his diligence. So no one can be that surprised. You can say, the Premiership so far has been unmitigated disaster. What did people expect?
So you're blaming the public, Henning. That always makes you popular.
Although there was one crucial decision he was involved in back in March, which was to keep Britain out of talks with the EU to bulk buy protective gear at the beginning of the crisis. That's according to the most senior Foreign Office civil servant, Sir Simon MacDonald, who told us Commons Select Committee this was not a communication error, it was a political decision. Although later he admitted that he'd made the claim inadvertently and wrongly. So a communication error of his very own. What is going on, Emma? What's happening?
Well, it's quite an odd thing that after something goes out like that, you can make the claim inadvertently. Were you actually wrong? I don't know. It now just looks quite odd that he said with full confidence to a select committee one thing, and then afterwards it wasn't the case. But the thing that they've been very lucky about with that particular situation is no one who signed up to it on time has yet to receive a containment. So what they can now say is, well, look, it didn't make any difference anyway.
Do you not think that everybody's been just looking at old episodes of Yes Minister, in which in the first 5 minutes the civil servant says something that's clearly true, and then the minister tells him that it isn't true after all, and then he remembers that it isn't true at all. And I love the idea that it's, was this a political decision? We could ask him now. Was the fact that you said the opposite straight afterwards, was that a political decision? Michael Gove's performance was fantastic because he's essentially being asked, is the Prime Minister trustworthy? And Gove has spent the last couple of years telling us he isn't. That's why he ran against him. So he had to sit there and say, I can't imagine why any of this would be believed. Well, we can.
Health Secretary Matt Hancock has also been criticised for failing to provide essential equipment for NHS staff. He responded by saying, I would love to be able to wave a magic wand and have PPE fall from the sky in large quantities. Well, if they haven't locked the doors properly on that flight from Turkey, you may be in luck.
There was a thought, though, that ministers in a report this week in the Telegraph were hanging Matt Hancock out to dry, obviously unnamed ministers.
Yes, there was a big promise about testing, and we were going to have 100,000 tests a day, but so far we haven't done that. We've been something like 18,000, is that right, Emma?
But in the first PMQs, Dominic Raab committed to meeting that target. So, you know, it's only a few days' time, we'll find out.
Thoughts inevitably are now turning towards unlocking the lockdown. The Mail reported that the government are considering a traffic light system. Any idea how that might work, Paul?
Yes, red followed by yellow followed by green. And then repeat the process.
Yeah, and the idea is you sort of gradually ease the country back into go mode. So in the red phase, basically, shops will be allowed to open at first, and hairdressers, thank God, Ian, eh? Then... in the next amber phase, the schools might open. They're talking about May the 25th as a provisional opening date for those. And then finally, the green phase is when the pubs will open. Here it is, as the Sun's report. Pubs shut till Christmas. Oh, don't worry if you were worried about keeping up with the death toll. They've got that covered as well.
I interview a lot of doctors in Germany, in other countries. Their advice has changed about masks. We should be wearing masks, apparently. But our government's saying... we haven't got them, essentially. We can't risk the supply to the NHS. So it's just like those early bits of advice that we're going to look back. I mean, in a few weeks, you'll probably all be wearing them on here.
There are conflicting opinions about this. I mean, some scientists have been saying one thing, WHO early on, so it's still a bit confused. But I want to wear a mask, obviously, and I want to wear a Paul Merton mask.
There have been growing protests across America, often at the urging of President Trump himself, for the lockdown to be lifted. Would you like to see how some of the protesters are putting over their reasoned arguments? Let's have a little look at this.
Now I think it's time for the government to allow us adults to make the decisions of what businesses they want to open. If they want to open up.
We should open up yesterday. It never should have closed. It's a hoax.
There's some very thick people living in America. The governor of Georgia, who I believe is a moron, he's going to open up the state on Friday. Amongst the businesses that will be allowed to be open will be tattoo parlours for those people who need a tattoo desperately in a hurry, who have been shocked by the appearance of their unblemished skin.
Yeah, that really makes everyone in Europe feel better, isn't it? You only have to look to the States, and wherever in Europe you live, you think, oh, it could be worse.
I mean, we think our government gives mixed messages from day to day. Trump does it inside a sentence. He's literally telling Americans that they've got to be locked down, and then the next sentence he says, but if you're locked down, I'd rebel.
Last week we enjoyed hearing Trump's assessment of how clever the virus is.
The germ has gotten so brilliant that the antibiotic can't keep up with it.
We got a different version of that this week with an added twist. Should we have a look at that?
Antibiotics used to solve every problem. Now one of the biggest problems the world has is the germ has gotten so brilliant that the antibiotic can't keep up with it. And they're constantly trying to come up with a new. People go to a hospital and they go for a heart operation. That's no problem, but they end up dying from problems. You know the problems I'm talking about.
I think the lighting effect is very clever as well. It's sort of like a drunk in a disco.
Thanks to Kylie Scott for that. What did Matt Close from Lancaster do with some toast to alleviate the lockdown boredom, Paul?
I don't know.
He built a model of Lancaster Castle out of toast. Do you want to have a look at that?
Oh, wow.
Must be haunted. It looks terrified. Here's the original Lancaster Castle.
That's close enough,
There's hardly any resemblance at all. His windows are far too big.
Ian, would you like to guess at the specific material that he used?
Are you asking Ian to guess what toast is made of?
Well, it was what particular brand Matt was using.
Was it sourdough?
No, Kingsmore 50/50 for strength. He said it's Kingsmore 50/50, 2 loaves. Hadn't really paid much attention to what bread I was using, but it seems to have done the job well enough. He quipped.
Really, Alexander? It should have been Kingsmill 5248.
That's a different land, Ian. We've left that land.
What has sports commentator Nick Heath been doing to keep himself amused?
He's going round parks and essentially commentating on whatever he sees in front of his eyes in regards to sporting achievements.
That's right. He's decided to keep himself match fit by commentating on anything and everything. Let's have a look at a montage of some of his best moments.
Well, you join me here live at Tooting Common. And, this the final of the 2 Lonely Blokes in a Park contest.
Well, you join me live outside St Nicholas Church, and it's pigeon dressage that has our attention for the next few moments. Well, you join me live for what I've been told is the Tooting dogging final, and will you join me live in Tooting? Plenty going on today as the round-the-block relay comes past us. It's Mike Parsons in the 3rd round of drag a load of tap down the road and park it, and it's a solid start. Now, if I was the owner of that car, I'd have been a bit worried.
The Crown Prosecution Service have issued new guidance for the police when dealing with public breaches of social distancing. Did you notice this, Paul?
No, I didn't, but I'm always keen to learn.
It's quite nuanced. According to the Telegraph, it's permitted for someone to drive somewhere to exercise, but only if the exercise is longer than the drive.
Are you allowed, therefore, to drive to your second home and then run around it furiously for a couple of hours, a bit longer than the drive, then get in your car and drive home again?
Well, yes, that's the problem, you see. If you're driving home and you've calculated it's going to take you 55 minutes and you get stuck in a traffic jam or something, you're going to have to jump out of the car and do 10 minutes of more exercise to justify the driving.
It's still very strict in Italy. Do you know why a 60-year-old woman in Rome might have been fined by the police, Emma?
Is it because she was having her hair tinted?
No, she was walking her tortoise, and that was judged to be non-essential.
If you walk your tortoise, you can turn your 1 hour exercise into, 5, 6 hours.
You could drive to Cornwall for that. How are the BBC trying to help with our children's education?
Yes, there's children's programmes going out during the day now, aren't there? I think Sir David Attenborough is one of the teachers has been brought on board.
And Sergio Aguero is teaching them Spanish.
That's absolutely right, yes. Danny Dyer is on hand to be teaching history.
History teachers weren't best pleased. You probably couldn't put them up with some of what they'd tweeted about the news that Danny Dyer had been picked as the supply teacher for their discipline.
Well, at least it's not elocution.
Whole generation of children going, oi, map it. This week, some of the nation's most popular singers got together for an online concert. Not sure what happened to my invitation, but there you go. Did any of you catch this heartwarming performance?
Hey, so as some of you guys might know, I'm a music teacher, and I found that one of the best ways that I can process the whole transition to online learning and teaching is to write a song. So I wrote a song. I'd like to share that with you guys now. Here we go.
This is the growing criticism of the government's handling of the coronavirus crisis. Police in London have been criticised for allowing this crowd to clap for carers on Westminster Bridge. Nice to see them clapping the people who'll be treating them next week.
Isn't it terrible when children are born with soft focus features?
Meanwhile, in America, Donald Trump said that he could see light at the end of the tunnel. Oh, gosh, move towards it, Donald. Move towards it. Some airlines are suggesting that when they fly again, the middle seat will be left empty. Good news for American passengers, as it leaves them somewhere to put the other buttock. Paul and Emma, take a look at this.
Hedgehog, that's a hedgehog walking through the countryside. There's a silent film comedian who I should recognise, but I don't. And the police are looking for, presumably for the hedgehog. Hedgehogs escaping somewhere or other? I'm not quite sure what that's about.
It's the news that 12 hedgehogs have made their escape from a prison in Staffordshire. Let's hope they weren't smuggled out in the usual way.
Why are we imprisoning hedgehogs?
Well, why were they there at Her Majesty's pleasure? Well, prisoners at HMP Dovegate had created a wildlife haven for them in the hope that their numbers would increase. In fact, they have now decreased to zero, in fact. What intricate escape plan had the hedgehogs devised?
I think they made a glider out of papier-mâché, and 2 of the hedgehogs flew it out to Switzerland and then sent a postcard back saying, "We're fine."
I think that's very poor taste, Ian, to reference your fund of Colditz anecdotes, considering that we have Henning here on the show. It seems to be remarkably ill-judged, from my opinion.
I'm just trying to add a little bit of balance, since we've all got to defer to Henning on the grounds that Germany have handled the crisis much better than us, so we're all sitting here feeling inadequate. I'm just reverting to type.
They got out using small gates that the prisoners had created for them in the perimeter fencing, so they could pop out at night in search of food and a mate. The gates were only 5 inches square, disappointing for the inmates, who'd initially suggested that they should be about the width of a man's body. According to the Independent Monitoring Board's annual report into the jail, HMP Dovegate, prisoners are also taking part in a scheme to recycle discarded tents from music festivals by sending them to local NHS key workers to wear. Meanwhile, in exciting new research, what have scientists discovered? Male lemurs wave at females to attract them.
Their own smell.
That's exactly right. According to the journal Current Biology, male lemurs smear their tails with a fruity floral liquid released from glands in their wrists and then wave them at passing females. Few of the inmates at HMP Dovegate are in fact inside for doing something remarkably similar to that.
This is how we're all going to have to pull in the future, isn't it? Because of social distancing rules.
Why would I want to pull a lemur? Mind you, they are cute.
Paul, we're told things won't be the same again after this pandemic.
So I've got to go to bed with a lemur that's got a smelly wrist. I've got a better thing to do than go round smelling lemurs' wrists. No, and actually I haven't. No, I haven't got anything better to do. I'll go and do that.
Name one thing you've got to do.
Well, not smell lemurs' wrists. That's top of the list. And if that doesn't work out, I'll smell lemurs' wrists.
Ian, in a nod to this week's final of University Challenge, let me give you a starter for 10. What is the collective noun for a group of lemurs?
A spray.
No, it is a conspiracy.
A conspiracy?
A conspiracy of lemurs, although Eamon Holmes doesn't think that's true. So yes, this is the story that several hedgehogs have absconded from a prison in Staffordshire. According to The Sun, prison hedgehogs are on the run after escaping, although most of them have now been picked up by police with a shovel on the road outside. Meanwhile, some scientists are still concentrating on the real issue and have discovered how ring-tailed lemurs attract a mate. Presumably the female lifts her tail and says, if you like it, you've got to put a ring on it.
Oh, God.
Well, it is time now for round 2, the picture zoom quiz. I'll show you the close-up of an image that will gradually zoom out, and I want you to buzz in when you know what the story is. So fingers on buzzers. Everyone got a buzzer to hand. What have we got? Paul?
Yeah, I've got a small G-scale locomotive.
My trusty hobby horse.
That's beautiful.
I've got a rather charming musical box that plays Mozart's Ein kleine Nachtmusik.
Henning, what's your buzzer going to be?
This and this, and then I'll just make the noise of hitting one of those.
Is that the World Cup?
Yeah, of course. Everyone's got one.
Fingers on buzzers. What is this? Ah, Paul!
I've no idea, but I just wanted to blow me horn.
Is this about things smelling? Is this the Bodleian?
Oh, it's not about lemurs again, is it?
Yeah, I was going to say.
No, this is the news that Oxford's Bodleian Library is creating an exhibition based on smells. So, Paul, what will you be able to smell in this wonderful library? Did you read about this?
Well, this is a classic story of eggheads gone wrong. I mean, they've obviously too much time on their hands and thought, OK, we've got all these smelly books. Let's pretend we'll have an exhibition about it, and nobody will be able to come here because they can't leave their houses. So we'll say, oh yeah, this book by Chaucer smells of lemon curry, and this book over here by Alexander Pope smells of jam.
Ian, did you know? Do you remember more about this?
Well,
Do
don't
you remember
ask
what
him.
this actually
He's an
is?
egghead gone wrong as well. He'll just jump in with all the other eggheads.
They've recreated the smells of various old manuscripts and texts. Basically, it's a lot of old books. They've recreated the smell of them without the books themselves being there. And this is an exhibition that's going to open later this year, and it's called Sensational Books. According to the Telegraph, the books are placed in a sealed glass cylinder through which air is circulated using a fan. Here it is. Okay, that's stage one.
That could be used by the NHS, that, instead of put it around an old book. But, blimey, when eggheads go wrong, they certainly go wrong. Yeah, you're keeping alive a copy of the Canterbury Tales when that could be down at the local hospital.
I'm going to tell you the title of a book in the exhibition. I want you to tell me what it smells of. Okay, an early manuscript of C.S. Lewis's...
While they're doing this, they could have been working on a vaccine.
An early manuscript of C.S. Lewis's The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. What does that smell of, do you think?
Wardrobe.
Turkish Delight.
No, it's notable for the odour of its author's tobacco habits, as well as whatever he was putting into his tobacco to come up with that storyline. Okay, well, in other culture news, how has the Polish painter Jarek Kubici made an artistic stance against the police? Someone seen these? They're quite fun.
Recreated famous pictures.
That's absolutely right. Yes, he's been drawing them into... Oh, thank you, I'd forgotten the music. Of course, the buzzers. He's been drawing them into classical art scenes as a comment on their overzealous enforcement of lockdown. Here's one. And here's this one. It's rather lovely. And finally...
Well, that's brilliant. Yeah, because they were hanging about in a garden together in a public place, probably sunbathing.
On their way to the dry cleaners, by the look of it.
The nation's museum curators have been keeping themselves amused, Paul. Did you see this week?
Yes, they did something to do with the creepiest object they have in there amongst their exhibits.
That's right, yeah. They've been staging a competition with each other to see who has the weirdest exhibit. Should we have a look at a few of them?
Oh.
Someone's syrup.
Michael Fabricant.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. A bit of him.
It's from the Yorkshire Museum, and it's a 4th century Roman lady's hair bun, still with the jet pins in place there.
That's how my hair looks most days. That is how I look most days at the moment.
Next, what's this?
Oh, it's a sort of mermaid, isn't it? It's an artificially made mermaid. Top half monkey, bottom half sardine.
Fish. It's exactly right. That's from the National Museum of Scotland. It's their hideous mermaid, also called the Fiji mermaid. Exactly as you say. The top half is from a monkey, bottom half fish. It was toured around by Barnum's Circus in the 1840s as a sideshow. I guess as some sort of proof that mermaids really do exist. What is this? Someone know what this is?
Sheep on wheels?
It is, but it is the cursed toy, apparently. This comes from the Prince Edward Island Museum in Canada. And they describe it as a cursed child's toy, found inside the walls of a 155-year-old mansion. And every time they leave it somewhere, it seems spookily to move somewhere else, all of its own.
It's on wheels. They put it on a slope.
Well, that's exactly what they're doing wrong. This is news that researchers in Oxford have managed to recreate the smell of certain old books and parchments in the Bodleian, which is great for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but perhaps not so good for the Kama Sutra. The exhibition of museum smells was going very well until the curator broke wind and made an exhibition of himself. Time now for the Missing Words Round, which this week features as its guest publication the Essex Birdwatching Society newsletter. The perfect hobby if you're outside for a few hours, and if you are, you're under arrest. And we start with... Prizes for the Essex Birdwatching Society's Grand Raffle include a book on flying moths, Fungipedia, a brief compendium of mushroom lore, and what?
Is it a bronze statue of Dick Pritchard?
Is it both of the above if you're unlucky?
The prizes for the Essex Birdwatching Society's Grand Raffle include a book on flying moths, Fungipedia, a brief compendium of mushroom lore, and a bum bag. This is an article from the Essex Birdwatching Society newsletter about their very exciting upcoming raffle. Fungipedia, of course, originally a Greek word meaning athlete's foot. Next, llamas are surprisingly what?
Surprisingly good at volleyball.
Surprisingly good at Joe Wicks's PE session?
Randy. Llamas are surprisingly fans of Charles Dickens.
Llamas are surprisingly big hit in American toy stores. This is the news that cuddly llamas have become the must-have toy for kids across America. According to one journalist in America, llamas do big business. Good news for the roses. One of the toy llamas is called Boppy the Booty Shakin' Llama, which twerks. Well, at the moment, they should really be twerking from home. OK, next. George Clooney wins fight with what over toilet?
Is it Amal Clooney?
Christopher Walken. Local council.
Local council is exactly right. There we are, local council. This is the news that George Clooney has won a planning permission battle with South Oxfordshire Council to build a toilet in his garden. I'm not surprised he needs another loo after all that Nespresso he drinks. Next, Dougal Urquhart to spend an evening regaling us with stories of what in France?
Mrs. Urquhart. Bird watching in the moorlands in France.
Yeah, I think I'll have to give you that one. Birding along the coast. This, of course, is an article from the Essex Birdwatching Society newsletter. The invitation says, meet in the car park at 9 o'clock. Just to be clear, that's 9 a.m, not p.m. That's when a rather different group of keen watchers turn up. According to the newsletter, they're charging £4 at the door. Presumably that's to leave. So the final scores are Ian and Henning have 6, Paul and Emma have 7.
Oh!
But
Yes.
on which note we say thank you to our panellists Ian Hislop and Henning Wehn, Paul Merton and Emma Barnett, and I leave you with the news that, unable to go out in the car and roll the windows down, one driver recreates the experience for his passenger. As hundreds of vegetable pickers finish their first week at work, one farmer gets suspicious of a new recruit leaving the premises. And as Matt Hancock announces the start of the human trials for a new vaccine, one man gets volunteered for the first jab. Good night.
Putting a cheeky spin on current affairs continues over on BBC Two later, and Nish Kumar is here in a tick to tell us more. And here on BBC One, Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Richard E. Grant, two of the screen guests joining Graham Norton next.